Well, it jumped and I hit the back of my head, and I still have a divot in my head from where I hit it in the rock. I was so capable of all of these wonderful things before I started having my brain bleeds.
Welcome back to Brain, sponsored by Toro and Tides. I'm your host, Evan Folan, and today my guest is Carol Thompson, a U.S. Army veteran whose journey with brain injuries spans decades, from repeated concussions while training and breaking horses to a service-related brain injury in the Army. Carol spent years pushing forward, but in 2019, everything changed. She began experiencing life-threatening brain bleeds that would lead to multiple surgeries, a craniotomy, and an entirely new journey of rebuilding. But Carol's story isn't just about what happened to her brain, it's about what she built afterwards through resilience, adaptation, and refusing to let her injury define her. Carol continues to prove that brain trauma may change your path, but it doesn't end your story. Carol, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing, Evan?
I'm doing well. How are you? It's so nice to have you. We met briefly on a call for the Seminole
Yeah,
group, and I'm
yes.
so happy that you were able and willing to share your story with my audience.
I'm excited for people to hear that brain injury does not have to define you, and you can just push through. Yeah, I mean, you don't always have to just push through. You just have to keep trying. And my mantra is, I will rise up when I stumble. So if I stumble, just get up, dust yourself off, and start all over again.
So important and such a powerful message. We haven't even dived into your backstory yet, Carol, and you're already inspiring me and our listeners. Let's jump back to when it all started. Who was Carol before the brain injury?
Oh man, I quite often look at that and say, I was so capable of all of these wonderful things before I started having my brain bleeds. I have two bachelors and a master's. I could devour a book and remember what I read. And I would read probably 24, 30 books a year. Now I struggle to get through. My goal this year is to read 4 books, but not just to read them, but to remember what I read. So I remember Carol before and being able, I don't know, do you know what Toastmasters International is?
No, man.
It's an international speaking club organization, and I was a distinguished Toastmaster. I had reached the top ranks. I'd been in many speech contests. Now I struggle with the words. Sometimes I stop and I'm like, what is that thing? It carries people, you get on it, and they all travel together. And sometimes kids take it to school, and I have to stop and describe what I'm trying to think of. And I think that, sometimes I get mad at myself and I says, "Oh, you're so stupid, you should know that." But then I have to stop and say, I have an excuse.
Yes, I think you and I have very similar personalities where we're hard on ourselves because before the brain injury,
Extremely.
perfectionists, hard workers, and
Mm-hmm.
when you lose that, you lose part of that identity. It's very
Mm-hmm.
easy to reflect back on the individual before the brain injury, but accepting this new identity is so important. And I know it's been a work in progress, but you've seemed to have done it so well. Now, what was interesting for me learning more about your story is it wasn't just one instant for you. I mean, childhood,
No.
you had repeated concussions and then a big head injury when you were serving in the army. Can you walk us through that, starting at childhood when you were breaking those horses?
I used to break and train horses, and of course, you didn't wear a helmet. You wanted to be cool. You had your cowgirl hat, and of course, since you're breaking and training, you get bucked off a lot, and you get whacked in your head. I remember one time was trying to teach a horse. I was training a horse, and we were on the road, gravel road. We lived way out in the country, and trying to teach it to, just trail ride with other horses. And it saw a pile of gravel off to the side. And sometimes horses see that and think, oh, a bunch of bees, and it jumps.
Mm.
Well, it jumped and I hit the back of my head, and I still have a divot in my head from where I hit it in rock.
Oh my gosh. Now, okay, when was this? 90s, 80s?
No, I'm much older than that.
Well, you don't look it. You don't look
uh,
it.
uh, I went in the Army in 1976.
Wow, okay. So the horse training, we're talking 60s probably?
Yep.
And back then, even so I was born in the 90s, brain injuries weren't taken as seriously as they were now. But if
No,
you walk it all the
yes.
way back to when you were a child, training these horses, walk us through what happened when, I mean, you still have a dent in the back of your head. Did you dust it off? Did you go take a nap? What?
Dust it off. You put a little, look it up, mercurochrome. It's
Okay.
illegal now. It actually has mercury in it. And that was the medicine. And I remember my grandma washing off the back of my head and putting mercurochrome on my back of my head.
And what was
It,
that
it's
supposed to
it's a
do?
red liquid, and it literally has mercury in it, and that's what we used.
Was this a painkiller or something just to sterilize the
No, it's
wound?
like an anesthetic, kind of like that tropical cream now that they use that is safe.
Yes, no mercury.
Doesn't have mercury in it.
Thank goodness for that advancement. Now, when you bumped your head, bumped, I mean that's a light way to say it. Man, you really throttled it. Did you notice anything, head pain? Obviously in the moment, of course, but lingering head
But
pain?
yeah, because I have lost memory from the brain bleeds that I had in starting in 2019. I can't honestly tell you, did I notice anything?
Hmm.
I know that I did pretty well in school, so I must not have really,
Hmm. Hmm. Man, that it's so interesting. Obviously, a very severe head injury. Horses are tall in general, over 6 feet on the back, right? And then you get bucked off and hit
mm-hmm.
with force on gravel. You get mercury rubbed in the back of your head. You're back in school, no problem. I mean, today, I think kids would be out for a week, maybe 2 weeks recovering and
Yes,
have light and sound sensitivity, encouraged to stay in a dark room. But, you're back
yep.
on your feet, probably training horses the next day.
And the same day,
Jeez,
the
that
same day.
it's incredible. I mean, it shows your strength and proves why you're so successful in the Army, which is when you had another head injury, correct?
Yes.
What, so walk us through that. What happened then?
I was a heavy equipment mechanic, and 290 earth scrapers are these big earth moving machines with the big belly. You see it, where they scrape the road, the dirt, and put in the belly and haul it off. They're probably about 30, 35 feet at the highest point.
Hmm.
I was all the way up on top of the cab doing something, and I needed a wrench, and I told the guy to throw it to me. He threw it to me, and he didn't quite get it to me. So I reached out to grab it, and I went down onto the concrete floor of the motor pool, knocked me out cold. I don't know how long I was out. I woke up, the motor pool sergeant's standing over me. He's like, Sergeant Thompson, are you okay? And I'm like, I think so. He says, well,
Goodness.
but I do know after that, I started messing up because I was not thinking clearly, and that led to uh, the end of my Army career.
Really? That
Yes.
head injury led to you getting out of the service.
Yes.
How immediate was that?
It was probably, I probably got discharged 2 or 3 months after that.
My goodness. And so what led to that discharge? You say you started messing up. Was it forgetting stuff? Was it
I was forgetting stuff. I was a squad leader, so I was responsible for a squad of people. And you have to be top notch. You can't mess up when you're in charge of people in the Army.
I'd say so.
And I wasn't remembering my immediate superior's name. I would forget people's name. I would forget what I'm supposed to be doing, when I'm supposed to be doing it. My headaches were bad.
Mm.
I know that I had ringing in my ears all the time. And they did send me to Frankfurt to the hospital to get checked out. And again, there's no CTs yet, there's no MRIs then. And at Frankfurt, they decided that it was highly suggested that I get out.
That was it. They're just,
Mhm.
they can't do internal screening or scanning of your brain. They know
No,
you.
they didn't have scans yet.
Holy cow. And so now when you're going through these symptoms, right? The ringing of the ears, the loss of memory, forgetting tasks while you're doing them, which is
Mhm.
terrifying. I've been there. Did it, were you circling back to the head injury? Did you think, hey, it's got to be that? Or
No,
was,
I was not circling back to the head injury. I was just beating myself up because I know in the military, hey, we've got to be ready to go to war at any minute.
Mhm.
And while I was not in active combat, there were many acts of terrorism that happened around our base, and we were on alert at the base to protect the base. So it wasn't active combat, it wasn't a combat zone, but yet we were under threat.
Mhm.
So I had to be responsible. And if I couldn't be responsible, you know, you've got to get out and let somebody else be responsible.
Hmm. Hmm. I want to ask you this because I think I've already had an individual, I've had a soldier, individual from the Army on this podcast, and he mentioned, I asked him about stigma
Mm-hmm.
associated to being weak or unable to complete a task
Mm-hmm.
because there's this mentality where, oh, I'm in the service, I'm protecting our nation, I can't show any weakness. And it's
Yep,
almost twofold in your situation because you're a female in a predominantly
that's right.
male dominated force. And so you're already having to prove yourself to another standard saying, hey, I can keep up. I can do this. I know I'm
Mhm.
capable of doing this. And now you have this horrific head injury. Was speaking up something that was something you
The
were?
speaking up could not have happened. And
Mhm.
when you say twofold as a woman, in my days, only 7% of the military could be women.
Jeez.
When I got to this company, I was the first female in it. So, and not only just the first female, they wanted to make me a clerk. I didn't know you weren't supposed to talk back to a first sergeant. I won't repeat back what I said to him. But let's just say I was doing push ups for a long time. Uh, but I got to be a mechanic. That's what I wanted to be. I grew up on a farm. I knew how to fix things.
We're going to be taking a quick break right now. Nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. Well, that's something I learned from the Brain Injury Clubhouse community. You ever heard of the Brain Injury Clubhouse? Well, neither had I until earlier this year. And from coast to coast, these clubhouses are providing brain injury survivors with vocational training, peer support, and a community. Three things that I had lost after my accident. Right now, Florida only has one of these houses, but we're working to change that. Reach out to me to see how you can help. All right, back to the episode.
So I got to be a mechanic. So to be a mechanic in a company that was extremely top heavy male.
Hmm.
And yes, you had to push through. And yes, in the military, you do not show weakness. You are taught, first of all, that you are taught in the military, do not show weakness, do not show emotions.
Hmm.
So, I couldn't tell anybody, hey, I'm scared, I'm worried. That would be if I hadn't gotten out, I might have lost promotion points by saying that.
Jeez. You know, before I dive into the next set of questions I have for you, Carol, I'm so damn proud of you, the first female in the company, and you stood your freaking ground. Sure, you had to work the triceps a little bit harder, but you didn't end up behind the
Uh-huh.
desk. You're in the field. as a mechanic. Look at those guns. Damn. I mean, that's amazing for you to really put your foot down and say, no, I deserve to be here first and foremost, but
Mhm.
I also deserve to be in the field. And unfortunately, that's where you sustain this horrific brain injury. But then hearing you talk about the lack of medical treatment that they have now, and where
Mhm.
you're just encouraged to, hey, you might as well just discharge
Mhm.
because it seems like you're not able to, hold yourself to the standards we expect.
Right.
What was that like mentally? Obviously, your brain, you're working through all this pain and this
Mhm.
cognitive deficits that I also struggle with, but emotionally, this has got to be so tough for you.
It was very tough because I was, I think, 3 or 4 months into a new enlistment, when I was suggested that I get out.
Mm,
So, my plan when I went in was to make the Army a career.
wow. A lifer. You wanted to be a lifer.
I wanted to be a lifer.
Jeez. Oh my gosh. That's so frustrating because when my accident happened, I was about a year into my career that I expected to do for the rest of my life. And then when that's
Yes.
ripped away from you, that identity, what we, built our
Mhm.
future around is stripped from us. So what year were you discharged?
I was discharged in 1982.
Okay, so we have 1982 until
Nine,
2019.
yeah, 2019 was when my bleed started. Between getting out of the Army and the bleeds, I had gotten two bachelors and a master's. I had worked as a research engineer making semiconductors till the company got bought out by the British government.
Mm,
Uh, I don't know what your faith is, but to me, it was just God saying, I got a plan for you,
mm.
because I ended up going into the ministry and doing campus ministry.
Really? How long were you doing
Yes.
campus ministry?
I did campus ministry for what, 16 or 17 years,
Up until the bleeds.
up until the bleeds.
Wow. Were the bleeds what ended your career with campus ministry? Were you still doing
I
it?
was kind of wrapping up the ministry when the bleeds happened,
Okay.
kind of transitioning out. I couldn't keep up with the young people anymore.
Well, you had done so much work already. Goodness.
Yeah.
When did the bleed start? Was it just immediately there was one day where something felt off or
I distinctly remember I was sitting in my living room looking out on the deck. I had spilt some bird seed out there, and there was a squirrel out there eating away. And then there was this thunderclap headache in late November of 2019. And it just felt, like I'm going to throw up all of a sudden. It was like projectile vomiting. I called my neighbor. I said, come over here. She knew immediately, come over. Uh, you know, we called 911 and they took me to the VA. Uh, and the first doctor in the ER at the VA gave me the medicine to help me to stop throwing up. He didn't do labs, he didn't do CT. After 2 hours, he says, go home, you have a migraine.
oh my gosh.
And I told him, no, I can't go home because my legs weren't functioning. I knew something was seriously wrong, you know,
You had lost
and
mobility, complete mobility
I
of
had
your
lost
legs?
mobility. Yeah.
Wow.
And another doctor came in and he asked some questions and he did labs. I don't know what labs they were, but lab called him and said, something's wrong.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
he came in and he asked me another question and he ordered a CT. But I was still in radiology. They called him and said, she's got a significant bleed. Now, here in Columbia, the VA is connected to the University of Missouri via a tunnel under the street.
Hmm.
University of Missouri is where neurology is. I remember by then they had given me pain meds, Peace Man, Purple Prancing Ponies. And it was before the really mechanical beds. and it's a little bit of a slope, and it's hot through there because that's where the heating ducts are. And I remember there was this chubby lady pulling the bed. And I remember asking her if she wanted to get on the bed and me pull because she was panting because I was so stoned from the pain meds.
Carol, did she take you up on the offer?
No,
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you get to you said University of Missouri, right?
University of Missouri.
Did they start doing
And
tests there?
they put me, I think they did a direct admit to, or maybe they did a CT there too. But was in neuro ICU that time for 7 days. I had two brain surgeries to clear up the bleeds. And then I was in on the neuro floor for another 7 days.
Wow. You know, it's so funny. I love this part of all my episodes, right? Where we're getting into the thick of it, the gritty details of the injury. And every one of my guests on the show just glosses through it like it's nothing. But what you just mentioned to the average non-brain injury individual, this is catastrophic. I mean, you had two brain
Oh
surgeries.
yeah. I had two brain surgeries that time.
You now, when you were describing this, you pointed to the left side of your head. Is that where the bleeds
Yes.
were?
The I had most of my bleeds in the left frontal. I had one on the left side, and I had one in the left rear.
All over
So
the place.
yeah, but most of my scar tissue is the left frontal, and that's where they ended up having to do a craniotomy.
Wow. Now, did they tell you why or how the brain bleeds started?
They did not know. They did not know. Uh, and it was like after I think like the third one, Dr. Lucchese was my neurologist at the time. And he said, I know enough that I don't know enough. We've got to get you stable. We've got to get you someplace where they can figure it out. And he says, the best place is either Duke University or Cedar-Sinai.
Hmm.
So of course you've got to work with the VA because they have to, approve it and approve your travel and, jump through. And then I had a fourth. So it must have been after the fourth bleed because I had a fifth bleed before they got me stable and they sent me to Cedar-Sinai. I was out there for 2 weeks and they figured out I have what's called RCVS. Don't ask me to tell you what it stands for. I know the first one is reversible, but it's not necessarily reversible when you get scar tissue in your head.
Hmm.
Um, but what happens is uh, my arteries in my brain are smaller for some reason.
Hmm.
And then when the RCVS happens, it's like your blood pressure just skyrockets all of a sudden. And when it's skyrocketing and your arteries are already small, there's no place. So it ruptures.
And this is what caused the bleeds.
This is what caused the bleeds.
Okay, now this is a good host that I am. I looked up, Carol, I looked up that acronym before we jumped on the call,
Uh-huh.
and I'm going to say it to our audience. It's reversible cerebral vasoconstriction syndrome. Now, it's
Yes.
caused by scar tissue and by the sudden narrowing of blood vessels in the brain. Excuse me, yours was caused by scar tissue, but the
Uh-huh.
narrowing blood vessels in the brain temporarily narrowing limits blood and oxygen delivery. So because of this, blood and oxygen is restricted from the brain and it causes sudden and severe thunderclap headaches. You mentioned
Thunderclap
thunderclap
headaches. Yes.
in the beginning. So you were already
Yes.
showing signs of this when you first went to
Yes.
the hospital. Um,
Yes.
this syndrome is something I had never heard of until you sent it to me. And to know you suffered
But see, it's on
five.
my little emergency dog tag now.
Oh, brilliant! I got
Yeah.
one of those, not a dog tag, but it's on my my watch. So I
But I
know.
have one on my arm too,
Brilliant.
and one here. I'm mama to a fire station, and they say do both.
Very okay. Looks like I'm gonna have to get a cool necklace like you.
Yeah.
So you go through five brain bleeds before the
Hmm.
VA approves you to travel to Cedar Sinai.
Yes.
Now, I used to be a primetime reporter for ABC, and the VA was my beat. So I was covering a
Uh-huh.
lot of stories about the VA, and one thing that was common is how slow it is to process claims, how it takes
Yes.
forever. Now, your situation is dire at this point, and
Yes.
you had five bleeds in Missouri while you were at that hospital?
But well, yeah, between 2019 and uh, what, like 2021,
Okay.
because it was like at the very end of COVID that I went to Cedars-Sinai because LA County was still under mask order. So it was at the tail end of COVID. So
Okay.
most of my bleeds and my craniotomy happened during COVID when nobody could be with me.
Oh man, what a horrific time to have this happen to you. Did each bleed require surgery? You said the first three
Each
required three
required
surgeries.
surgery, and two of them I ended up on a respirator.
Carol, you're not you're giving us just these little tidbits of information. Break it down for us, girlfriend. What do you mean
The
on a
first
respirator?
time I woke up on a respirator, I woke up crying because what did we hear on the news? How short respirators were.
Hmm.
My brain immediately went to, I'm taking it away from somebody who needs it.
Mm,
And they tie your hands down so you don't pull it out. And luckily, the nurse was in there and she saw that I woke up and that I was crying. And she came over and asked if I was in pain. And I'm trying to signal her with my hands tied down. And she untied my hands and told me, don't pull it out, and she gave me something to write with. And I wrote that I'm taking respirator away from somebody that needs it. She says, honey, we wouldn't put you on it if you didn't need it.
mm.
And that just kind of slapped me in the face because I just thought, oh, I'm taking it away from somebody who needed it. And that time when they wheeled me to surgery, I was still on the respirator. And I just remember the hallways just being so empty.
Mm.
And there was one nurse walking toward us, and she saw I was on a respirator. She must have thought it was COVID because I remember her getting way up against the wall. And oh, okay, if my brain would have functioned better, I might have went boogie 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 at her, as I went by. But my brain wasn't functioning.
My goodness. You know, COVID was a scary time for everybody.
It was an extremely scary time, and I'm having brain bleeds. And when I would call the ambulance, they would have to ask a gazillion extra screening questions. They would come in your house in like hazmat suits,
Hmm.
and I remember the one I called, and they're asking all these questions, and I'm telling them, just get the heck here, you know?
Wow. I mean, a double whammy, right? COVID and then brain bleeds for you.
Yeah.
What kind of symptoms were you showing when you had these brain bleeds? Because I think it'd be educational for our audience to know, signs and symptoms. Was it headache? Was it those thunderclap headaches again?
The thunderclap headache was the first thing.
Hmm.
And then the vomiting. Every time it was like I felt, I don't know that movie where the person's head spins around and pea soup, it's just like everything from your toes out come up. You
Exorcism
know,
vomiting.
yeah, just yeah. And which makes your head feel worse, but
Mhm.
you just yeah,
Jeez. So you had five brain surgeries,
yes.
and they're going in each time to remove the bleeds.
The bleeds. The with the craniotomy, there was an artery that ruptured, and I had a large clot. So they had to go in and take the skull out, So I have a screw in my forehead. So if anybody ever says I have a screw loose, I'm going to check. If it is, I'm going back to the neurosurgeon.
Carol, how can you be so positive and making jokes so much? This is incredible. I love your outlook on life and how many having a screw loose could be something a serious issue for you if it's true.
I compete in the Veterans Golden Age Games, and I have a friend who made me shirt that on the back says, uh, overcoming brain trauma, 5 brain surgeries, screw in the forehead. If I have a screw loose, I'm going back to the neurosurgeon, going for the gold.
Going for the gold. Heck yeah. And we know you
Yeah.
will. I want to get to this, what you're going to be competing in soon, but I want to just cover a little bit more of the brain injuries. Now, when you go out to California,
Yes.
Cedar Sinai, this was
Mhm.
this for the final surgeries?
No, they didn't do any surgeries there. It was all diagnosis. That's where they diagnosed me with RCVS. I mean, scans, labs, X-rays, anything that they could put you through,
Mm,
they did it. And uh, I mean, every type of MRI and CT you can imagine, but the two neurologists that I had there were top notch. They diagnosed me, and explained, about the narrowing of the arteries. And, you know, I remember him explaining that the first word was reversible. And he says, but it doesn't mean that your brain's going to go back to the way it was. Doesn't
mhm,
mean like we think, oh, reverse and you're back to where you are.
mhm. When I I'm glad you mentioned that because I've been dying to ask this question. Now, after these 5 surgeries and after all of these bleeds, 5 bleeds then, right? For five
Mhm.
surgeries?
Yes, yes.
Did Carol, a part of you change each time after these surgeries? Did you notice a
I
different
think a
symptom?
part of me changed each time. The hardest change for me was
Taking a quick pause from today's episode, people have been asking about the hats and shirts that I wear on all of these podcasts. They're also asking where they can find my memoir. You can check everything out over at toroandtides.com. Again, that is toroandtides.com. My memoir, Forgetting to Remember, is also available on Amazon. That dives deeper into my own brain injury recovery journey. Alrighty, back to the episode.
the hardest change for me was this is kind of back to Carol being happy, jolly, making fun, loving people. But for a long time, I was this irritable, nasty human being.
Mm,
I didn't know where it was coming from. It was like, yeah, I was possessed.
mm.
And there's a thing with that develops with some brain trauma called pseudobulbar effect. And it's like almost like you bipolar, you
Mm.
know. And I remember telling the neurologist I felt like a hormonal woman. And what really made me realize that something was wrong, the show Survivor?
Oh, love it. Yes.
Okay, when they vote people off, I remember that season there was somebody I absolutely hated and he got voted off. And I'm sitting here bawling like a baby. Oh, and I'm like, what the heck is wrong with you?
Mm.
And
Mhm.
I thought I was losing my mind.
Mhm.
I thought I was going to be locked up in the state hospital, you know,
Mhm.
because nobody explains that when you have brain trauma, it causes you all these weird emotions that you don't know what to do with.
Yep.
And for a person who had been in the military, plus I'm a victim of child abuse, so I've learned to shut off emotions.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, my emotions were going. I'm like, the neurologist diagnosed me with pseudobulbar. He put me on a med, and I feel like I'm even keel now. I
Good.
feel more like Carol.
Good.
I used to say, I remember Carol here before brain trauma,
Mhm.
but here's Carol now, and she's going to be locked up.
Hmm. And now that scary Carol or that Carol that you were unfamiliar with, right?
Yes,
She didn't show up until post
to the brain
2019
trauma. Yes,
after the bleed.
post brain bleeds. Yes, it,
Wow.
it was like, yeah,
How long was that Carol present? Several years?
probably 2.5 years or 3 years.
Hmm.
I would just blow up at people for no reason. And then
Mhm.
I knew that I blew up. And so I would have to go apologize,
Mhm.
and it's like, this is not who I am.
No, man, I feel for you, and I'm so sorry you had to carry that Carol for so many years. Now, when I say scary Carol, I didn't mean to
I
i-
mean, yeah, it was scary,
insult you
Carol.
in any way,
It
but
was
like
scary, Carol. Yeah.
I've been through that emotional roller coaster as well because the extent of damage to my brain, a lot of my damage was in the area where it's that emotional regulation, right? Where,
Yes.
and I wasn't as forthcoming. It kind of sounds like you too, right? Where something's off, but it's like I can work through this. I can fix this. And
Oh, yeah. Walk it off, rub some dirt.
exactly, yeah. And it was the depression, the
Mhm.
anxiety, the panic attacks, and the
Yes.
scariest for me were the intrusive thoughts, which
Yes.
I had never had. And it's where it's me driving down the freeway at 70 miles an hour, and intrusive thought pops up and says, "Hey, put the car in park." What? Like what? Why am I? That's not me. Or standing in a grocery store line, and you know what? You should punch that guy in the back of the head. What are you doing, Evan? Like that's not you at all.
Right.
Um,
I understand that. Yeah. I didn't think put my car in park, but I would think, oh, I wonder what it would feel like to drive off the edge of the road off that deep cliff.
mhm, mhm. Man, and
Uh,
that, like you said, Carol,
yeah.
that's not you, that's not me. And then it took
Yeah.
me seeking help from my neurologist, where I wish there was a playbook for brain injuries, where it's, hey, if you're experiencing these symptoms, it's probably because of X, Y, and Z. Seek
Yes.
medical help, immediately. Like, don't.
I
Goodness.
remember telling my neurologist something was wrong, that I felt like a hormonal woman. And he
Mhm.
said, yep, that'd do it. Like, that's a big help.
That's all he said, or all she said.
That's all he said. Yeah. Until I had he left. He went to Arkansas, so I had to get a different neurologist. And it was
Thank goodness.
my new neurologist that specializes in RCBS sent me to a neuropsych, and the neuropsych says, "Hey, this is what it is."
Wow.
I'm like, "Gee, I wish people would tell me sooner."
Oh my gosh, I couldn't agree more. Well, good. I'm glad that neurologist left the state, went somewhere else. Hopefully, that neurologist isn't practicing anymore because that was completely unhelpful to you.
Yes.
And hopefully he's not or she's not passing that advice on to other brain
He
injury survivors. Man,
was the one though that says, "I know enough that I don't know enough."
so he owned it. He owned it.
He owned it. Yes.
Wow. Well, today, Carol, today you said you know this Carol now. You know that the happy,
Yeah.
the jokester.
Mm,
But at the beginning of our conversation, you mentioned, you're not that avid reader anymore. You're not able to retain
nope.
that information from the
No.
books. Word finding's difficult for you sometimes. Let's talk about the symptoms that you carry with yourself today from these brain bleeds.
I still struggle. I struggle with my speech. I have a bit of a stutter. I know that my language is not as clear as it used to be. I know I struggle with word finding.
Mhm.
To read a book, I have to, if you saw how I read a book, my friends call them my exploding books, because I will read a couple of pages and highlight and then stop, then go back, and I might make a note or two in them, then stop, then go back, and then I start putting tabs where I want to remember stuff.
Mm.
Then I have notebooks for the book, and where I kind of outline each chapter. And at the end of each chapter, I ask myself, what is one takeaway that I want to remember for that chapter?
Wow. That must take you a long
Instead
time to
of
get through chapters.
devouring it and remembering.
Is that frustrating for you, or do you know
Oh,
the work that?
extremely frustrating.
Okay, and the only reason I asked is I didn't know if you've kind of changed that mindset where it's like, hey, by doing these steps, I get to enjoy the book and kind of understand the
I
storyline.
do get to enjoy the book,
Hmm.
and I enjoy that my friends make fun of my exploding books, but it's how I have to do it.
Hmm.
And with my professional group, we have a Facebook group, and generally in November, everybody's like, "What's on your reading list for next year? What's on your reading list next year?" And I would start buying books in November. Oh yeah, I want to read what. Oh, that sounds like a good book. And this year, I says, my goal is
Mm.
four books, and I've accepted it. Four books.
Hey, I mean, you're setting goals, which is awesome. And
Yeah,
good for you. For a lot of people that, carry the symptoms you do, they might never pick up a book again, but you are.
yeah.
And you're working through the symptoms, you're figuring out, certain things that help, tricks and tips that I'm sure other people will hear that you're doing and start implementing it in their day-to-day life. If they truly love reading and carry the same challenges that you do. Do you still have the thunderclap headaches?
I have not had a thunderclap headache for a while. Uh, and my RCVS neurologist says he cannot guarantee that I will not have another one.
Okay.
But when they were happening repeatedly, I would wake up and think, is this the day I'm going to have another one? Am I going to be left, you know, in a nursing home?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A drooling old lady in a diaper, in the veterans home. That was my fear. I was just terrified of that. And then, when they figured out what was causing them, and they treated it so that I haven't had any for a while, and I started having all those emotional roller coaster, and I thought I was going to end up in the state hospital. We've got that figured out. So, you know,
Well, I'm glad you're not in there. I'm glad you're
I'm
trying the
not,
podcast with me. You
yeah.
you also mentioned you sent me some information. You have seizures. You
I have a seizure disorder developed from the scarring on my brain,
mhm.
and I planned my first seizure, is what I say. I had it in my doctor's office.
Hell of a place to have it. The perfect place to have it.
I know. Yeah, I just all that I remember from that day is that I went to my doctor. Um, it was like 2 or 3 years ago, and it was after I had competed at the veteran. No, I had gone to Arizona and
Mm-hmm.
I had driven there. So that's 3 days of driving,
Mm-hmm.
and my legs were swollen. And I wanted to see what she could do. My ankles look like my fourth grade teachers, they're big, huge. Yeah. So,
Hopefully, she's
and
not listening to the show.
I think my fourth grade teacher's probably dead. uh, but the nurse took my blood pressure and she said it was high, and
Mhm.
she was going to have me go lay down in a room for a while to relax, and then she'll retake it. And I remember thinking, well, you guys have never done that before. And she said, okay, let's go. And I went to stand up, but I couldn't stand up. And she says, I'll get you a wheelchair. And I'm like, I'm not an old person. And I didn't want her to get a wheelchair. And she says, okay. And she let me sit there for a little bit. And she said, are you ready? I'm like, yeah. And that's the last thing I remember. I,
Wow.
I do remember my primary putting her hands on my face saying, stay with me, because I think she thought I was having another bleed, you
Jeez.
know.
Yeah. So was it
Uh,
a convulsive seizure? Were you flopping around, or was it
I
a
don't
natural
know.
seizure? Okay.
I don't know. I just
Wow.
remember, them, uh, trying to tell me that I needed a wheelchair, and me saying no,
Mhm.
and then not being able to stand up. And then my primary, I remember at the VA they called stat team, means, come quickly, whatever that team is. And then there's also a stroke team. And I remember them calling the stat team, kinda. And I remember my primary saying, call stroke team also. So I think she thought I was having another bleed.
Wow.
And that's why I remember her, she's just this tiny little bit of a woman, putting her hands and saying, stay with me, you know.
Jeez.
And then I wake up over at the University of Missouri, and have all these things stuck to my head.
My gosh. Well, you're keeping the lights on over there at the University of Missouri. How many times you been there? Are they making you pay your
Oh
rent?
yeah. Yeah, I just love hospital food.
Are they treating you for seizures now? Are you on medication?
Yeah, I'm on medication and will be for the rest of my life. And I have a
Okay.
service dog that detects seizures, and he also
Wow.
helps with balance and stability because I do have an issue with that now.
Since the brain injury.
The bleeds. Yeah.
Okay. So you have seizures, balance and stability, complications, short-term memory, you said, right?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
then yeah, I think you said this earlier, and this is my short-term memory coming to play. You said you would be mid-task and you would forget you're doing something. Was that now
Oh
or was that
yeah.
back in
I'm constantly I have a system of whiteboards. I even have one in my bathroom.
Whoa, okay.
Uh, because when you're brushing your teeth and you remember, oh, I've got to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
go through go to do it, you can't remember what you're supposed to do. So while I'm brushing my teeth, I write it on the whiteboard
I
if
gotta
I
I gotta
remember
put
it.
one of those in my bathroom. Because
Uh,
I'm keen on forgetting those great teeth brushing thoughts.
yeah, it so just yeah, I have a system of whiteboards, that kind of help keep me going, and every provider has a notebook
Mm.
because when you see the provider,
Oh. Uh-huh.
you have questions for them beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you get there, do you remember your questions?
Absolutely not.
So every doctor has a notebook. And what they say, the little things they tell me, I write down.
Wow.
And then I have friends who are in the medical field, and I will say, hey, Deanna, hey, Jack, I'm going to see this neurologist, that neurologist. What should I be asking them?
Mm. Mm. Very
And they
smart.
feed me questions to ask.
Man, you've got it figured out, Carol. I got to start taking notes from your book. I think it's my stubbornness where I want to challenge myself to see if I can remember, and then I fail every time. So I need to kind of relinquish that power that I'm holding on myself and start bringing notebooks
But we
everywhere.
have to relinquish. I'm a pig-headed, stubborn German, 100%, and I'm type A. So I understand there, we want to keep doing, but we're doing even if we have to adapt.
Hmm.
And what I say is, you know, I've learned this in the past, but now I have to relearn a new system in order to keep doing.
Hmm. Hmm. And doing is exactly what you're doing because you're competing now. I mean, you're not letting these
Yep.
these brain bleeds, define who you are as a person. A lot of people, may have just given up and sat on the couch and watched TV for the rest of their life, but you're not. I don't want to steal your thunder, but you did teach yourself how to swim at the ripe
I
age of
didn't teach
60.
myself how to swim. I have a swim coach.
There we go. Yeah, you didn't throw yourself in the
I'm an
pool.
old lady I would walk in the pool, for physical therapy. I saw them giving lessons to kids, and I says, "Can you teach old people?"
And they said yes.
It They said yes. It took 6 lessons for them to convince me to put my face in water and blow bubbles, and it was only 3 feet of water. So it took a bit. But now I'm getting there. I would not call myself a swimmer yet.
Well, come on, you're
I
competing in swimming events.
I'm competing in swimming events, but for freestyle, this year's the first year I'm competing in freestyle, and my goal is to get from point A to point B and not have the lifeguard jump in and fish me out.
It's a great goal to have. Let's talk about
Yeah.
these games. What are the games called and how'd you get into them?
They're called the Veterans Golden Age Games. They're for veterans 55 and older who are enrolled in VA. The motto is fitness for life. And one of my physical therapists, who was at the VA when I was doing physical therapy at the VA, uh, suggested that I talk to the rec therapist about it. He says it's actually good for you, and he's the one that got me walking in the water. So to me, I look at my training as just a continuation of my physical therapy.
Great approach to it. And you know what? You got that competitive nature in yourself anyway, so the drive to keep getting better. So we
Oh,
know
yeah.
you're competing in swimming events. Now, granted, you just want to
Yes.
get from one side of the pool to the other without the lifeguard
Uh-huh.
jumping in. We
Well,
know
well,
that you're going
that's
to do that.
freestyle. Backstroke, I want to win.
Okay, okay. Good for you. Here we go. We want to know if you walk away with that gold. So you're gonna have to keep up with us.
Yeah, backstroke, I have one silver medal and two ribbons.
Wow. Okay. Now are ribbons
The
just for competing or is it fourth
No,
place?
the top 10 nationally. Within You only get a ribbon if you're in the top 10 national.
You're silver. You got second in backstroke nationally.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, I didn't know I was sitting with, a celebrity this entire podcast. Oh, I thought these were
I'm not
state games.
Michael Phelps. Yeah, I don't have
Wow.
the
Holy cow. Okay, so you're doing these events. You said javelin is another one?
shot put, discus, and javelin, and I've placed nationally in those two.
Jeez. So how many are competing on a national level in these events?
They put you in categories by your age in 5 year brackets. I'm in the 65 to 70. I'm not quite 70 yet, but getting close. Uh, and you compete with women. You're not competing against the guys in that age bracket.
Okay. Wow. And this is continued physical therapy for you. Allegedly,
Yes.
that's what you say, but I'm telling you, a lot of the people you're competing against do not have brain injuries, I'm assuming, correct?
No, I'm assuming most of them don't.
Look, I mean, why are you making us all look bad in the brain injury community, Carol? I'm not competing nationally for
Because
anything.
I just want to inspire you. I'm a survivor thriver. I want you to be a survivor thriver.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, just talking with you for this last hour or so, I am inspired, and I know you're inspiring our listeners. I always finish up each episode with this. What is something you would like to share with the brain injury listeners? Something that helped you get through those really tough days, or anything you want to tell them, because I know we have a lot of those listeners. Wow. Yeah, and I mean that positivity is just radiating through this screen as we talk. Carol, you have changed my life. We shared a quick conversation before we jumped onto this call, but I know through this conversation you're changing dozens and dozens of other lives, whether they're brain injury survivors, caregivers, or just listeners of the show, because you have such a unique perspective after so much has changed in your life. And you're so positive. That's the unique perspective you have. So a lot of people wouldn't have this positivity that you have, and you fought for it. You showed that fight early on in your military career, right? Not accepting the answer no, and pushing those boundaries. And you're sure you had these brain bleeds, but you're even telling the brain injury no. You're listening to your body, but you're saying, you know what? That's not the end of my story. I'm gonna
That's
fix
not,
my feet.
and yeah, it's not the end. I've had to learn to walk 3 times,
Wow.
because of them. And I had a severe, severe, severe stutter for a while. I did music therapy. Mel Tillis, who has that really bad stutter. That was me. And I was afraid to talk to people. But luckily, my pastor's daughter is a certified music therapist with a specialty in brain trauma. So,
Talk
and
about.
I can't sing a tune in a bucket, but she worked with me.
And now you can. Now you are a singer.
No, I'm not a singer yet. I sing, my philosophy with singing is sing it loud so everybody can hear, no matter how bad it sounds. The louder you sing, the better it sounds.
You're just belt. Oh my Lord. You are obviously a woman of faith. Did you go to church?
Yes, I do.
Are you just
Front
screaming in
row.
that?
I'm a front row person.
Oh, Carol, are you screaming the lyrics when y'all are
Oh
singing?
gosh, yeah. Oh gosh, yeah.
Oh, I love you so much. This is amazing. Wow, you are I cannot wait for the response from our audience because you're I know a lot of people are going to reach out to me asking to get your contact information because they need a dose of Carol every day. That's holy
All
cow,
right, here I am.
you're dopamine. You are dopamine.
Yep.
Wow. Carol, thank you so much for coming on to my show. I really, really appreciate it. And thanks for just being inspiration. To our listeners, I hope you found some advice on this show. I hope you found some happiness or a good laugh from Carol's personality. But we will catch you on the next episode. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for having me.